Hello students. In today's lecture, I will be discussing the remaining topic of metal semiconductor junction, that is ohmic contact or an ohmic junction, and we'll be discussing a brief of optoelectronic devices. What are the semiconductor materials for optoelectronic devices? So let us just start with ohmic contact first. Now, ohmic contact. If you remember in the previous lecture, when I explained you what exactly a metal semiconductor junction is, we considered a term called work function. So, what is an ohmic contact? Ohmic contact is a contact which is formed when we consider a metal which is having a work function that is less than the work function of semiconductor. That is, it is formed if the work function of metal is less than the work function of semiconductor, which means phi m stands for work function of metal should be less than phi semi, that is work function of semiconductor. Now the ohmic contact is basically known as a low resistance junction. That is the reason it is a non-rectifying junction which provides current conduction from the metal to semiconductor and vice versa. That is, it always allows flow of electrons from one terminal to the other, unlike the Schottky junction. Now, it is a contact where there is an impeded transfer of majority carriers from one material to another. The contacts do not limit the current. Getting it? In the Schottky junction, we saw that only in certain biasing conditions current is allowed. Whereas in ohmic contact, irrespective of the biasing conditions, there will always be a flow of majority carriers from one material to the other. Let us see what exactly it means. Now the diagram of an ohmic contact. So like the Schottky junction, here I have shown in this diagram before the contact what exactly is the scenario. So this is the metal where EF represents the Fermi level of the metal. So this is the level till which we have electrons in case of metal. So the minimum energy required to move the electron is nothing but its work function. So I've represented phi m. Similarly, you have an n-type material. We consider n-type because they have majority as electrons. So this is the work function of the n-type material represented as phi n. This is the lowest level of conduction band. You have shown electrons here. This is the maximum level of valence band. So these are the conduction and valence bands respectively, and this is the Fermi level of the n-type material. So this is very correct if the junction is not made because the Fermi levels are uneven. So in this case, what happens? This has a higher charge carrier density and also it has a lower work function. So whenever we are going to join them, whenever we are going to make the contact between these two materials, what exactly will happen? The metal will give its electrons to the n-type semiconductor. Why? Because number one, it has a high charge carrier density. Number two, it has a lower work function. So energy required to move an electron is less in case of metal as compared to semiconductor. Now let us consider the scenario when the contact is made, that is after the contact. Now, as discussed in my previous lecture, there is a golden rule. Whenever a junction is made, the Fermi levels should line up. If you can see here, the Fermi levels are not lined up. Is it? They're not in straight line. But now we need to make a contact, means the Fermi levels should be in one straight line. Just see here. This represents the Fermi level of metal and this represents the Fermi level of n-type semiconductor. So there should be one straight line here. Also, the metal is going to give its electrons to the semiconductor. Now what happens is, because the metal has a huge carrier density, and that means you can say the donating capacity is more, but semiconductors accepting capacity is less. So if this is the flow of electrons from metal to semiconductor, there will never be shortage of electrons. Exactly near the junction, there will never be shortage. No region would be there which is devoid of charge carriers. It will always have electrons as charge carriers present. So unlike the Schottky junction, here we are getting an accumulation region. There we got a depletion region because there were no charge carriers present near the junction. But here you can see the charge carriers are always present near the junction, and this is what forms the accumulation region. And because of the accumulation region, you can see there is a constant flow of electrons from metal to semiconductor. So at equilibrium, electrons move from metal to the empty states in conduction band of semiconductor. So there is an accumulation region near the interface, and this is on the semiconductor side. Why? Because semiconductor is the acceptor here. The accumulation region has a higher conductivity than the bulk of semiconductor due to the higher concentration of electrons. Because metal has a high charge carrier density, because it can donate more electrons, the accumulation region is always filled up with electrons. Thus, the ohmic junction behaves as a resistor conducting in both forward and reverse bias. It can only act as, see, it does not require any biasing condition. It does not require any forward bias to conduct. Even in zero bias, there is always a flow of electrons present. The resistivity is determined by the bulk resistivity of the semiconductor. So it basically, the resistance here will depend on the bulk resistivity of the semiconductor. As the contact offers negligible resistance, an ohmic contact is also known as a non-rectifying junction. It is known as a non-rectifying junction because it will always allow electrons flow from metal to semiconductor. There is no such condition like forward required. So that is the reason it does not rectify. It is a non-rectifying junction, and that is the reason it follows the VI characteristics as per Ohm's law. If you remember, Schottky junction has similar characteristics like a PN junction diode, and you must be clear that semiconductors do not obey Ohm's law, but such a type of junction will actually follow characteristics as per Ohm's law. Now, basically, if it is a non-rectifying junction, it cannot have an application like a diode. But there is some importance of ohmic junction. Ohmic junction or an ohmic contact is never used to make a diode, but it has a very interesting application. It is used in thermoelectric devices. You can say like thermocouples or RTDs. They are known as temperature sensors, where you can have a small volume which can be cooled by application of direct currents. Now for ohmic junctions, depending upon the direction of current, or forward or reverse, heat can, now if it is connected in forward or reverse, in both the conditions it is going to give always give current because it is a non-rectifying junction. So depending upon forward or reverse bias conditions, forward bias condition means metal is connected to positive side, and reverse bias means metal is connected to negative side. However, in both the cases you are going to get current. But depending upon the direction of current, heat can be either generated or absorbed. So if it is forward, heat is generated. If it is reverse, heat is absorbed. Now this actually is known as Peltier effect. Now Peltier effect is a temperature effect, very well known effect, which is actually applicable to two dissimilar metals or two dissimilar materials. Now when current flows through an ohmic junction, heat will be released or absorbed, and this is actually used in practical cooling device. So you can see in the diagram, whenever the electron jumps here, there is absorption of heat. Similarly, you can say there will be emission of heat. So depending upon the biasing condition, depending upon the way the battery is connected, you can either use it as a cooler. So this is one of the applications of ohmic junctions. It's a small topic, can be asked as a 4 marks question. So you have to explain the previous two diagrams and what exactly an ohmic junction is. Why is it a non-rectifying junction? No need to explain the application in detail. This is just as a reference I have shown. So this ends the topic of metal semiconductor junction. Now let us move on to the next topic, that is optoelectronic devices. What do you mean by the word optoelectronic? Optoelectronic devices, they basically means conversion. Now opto stands for optical, electronic means current. So light to current or current to light. So these devices, such devices which exhibit this process are optoelectronic devices. It deals with a study or an application of electronic devices that interacts with light, which might be detection of light or emission of light. Either they will detect or absorb light or they will emit light. A large number of optoelectronic devices consist of a p-type and n-type semiconductor, just like a regular p-n junction diode, which are known to be light sensitive, and in some cases they emit light. Now optoelectronic devices are mainly of two types. The ones which convert light into current. We have photodiode in our syllabus. We've already done in practical that on absorption of light only you get current. So this is one type of optoelectronic device, and the other type of optoelectronic device are the ones which convert current into light. we've already done in practical, that is LED, a light emitting diode. Now let me brief you about some terms which are related to the topic optoelectronic devices. The first of them is photoconductivity. You can say photo here stands for photon or light. In general, I can say increase in conductivity when light is absorbed. See, I've written the definition. The increase in electrical conductivity of certain materials when they are exposed to light of sufficient energy is what is photoconductivity. You can say photoconductivity occurs when a material is bombarded with photons of sufficient energy to raise the electrons across the forbidden gap, that is from valence band to conduction band. Or you can say the process is known as generation of EHP, that is electron hole pairs. I have shown here, suppose you consider a valence band and the conduction band. In between this gap is known as the forbidden gap. So what happens is h nu stands for photon. When light is incident on this valence band, the electron is moving from the valence to conduction band. So you have electron here and a hole here. Electron and hole are separated, means EHP is created, electron hole pair is created. How was it created? By light. So by light I say EHP is created, or I can say conduction has increased, or I can say photoconductivity, the conductivity increases. Now photoconductivity is a process which serves as a tool to detect the presence of light and measure its intensity in light sensitive devices. This is just a brief. In detail we will be discussing in the topic photodiode. Second important term related to optoelectronic devices is the process of luminescence. If I say photoconductivity, it is absorption process, right? How absorption? On absorbing light, electron hole pairs are created. Similarly, if I discuss luminescence, luminescence means the property of emission, basically known as spontaneous emission. Now, spontaneous means impromptu, suddenly. The property of emission of light is called luminescence. It is basically a recombination process. How? On absorbing light, the electrons have moved to the conduction band. So many such electrons in conduction band. Higher the energy of electrons, higher is their unstability. So these electrons are definitely going to come down. They come to a relaxation position, that is the lowest of conduction band, and from there they will come back to valence band and they will recombine with the hole. So from now this hole has recombined with this electron. This is a higher energy, this is a lower energy. So when this electron comes to lower energy, the difference between these two energy levels is released in the form of photon. So you can say that if photoconductivity is generation of electron hole pair, luminescence is recombination of electron and hole. Whenever electron and hole recombine, difference of energy, because energy can never be destroyed, it has to be converted into some other form, and here it is converted in the form of h nu, that is a photon. When excited electron recombines with hole in lower energy state, the difference of energy is released in the form of photon. The efficiency of luminescence depends on the degree of transformation of excitation energy into light, and it also what is the amount of energy released. It depends on that, and how many electrons are undergoing transition from the excited states. So there are different types of luminescence processes on the basis of excitation mechanism. What do you mean by excitation mechanism? To excite the electrons in conduction band, because if they are not excited, they are never going to recombine with holes. So you won't get light as an output. So luminescence basically depends on the excitation mechanisms. There are many processes, but 2 or 3 processes which are related to our syllabus we'll discuss. The first one of them is photoluminescence. Photoluminescence means light is used to excite electrons and output is also in the form of light. And let me just explain. Using this photon, electron has moved to conduction band, and after conduction band, because many electrons in conduction leads to higher instability, these electrons are going to come back. So when they come back and recombine with the hole, the output is also in the form of photon. So photoluminescence is a process in which a molecule absorbs a photon in the visible region exciting its electron to higher electronic excited state, and then radiates a photon when these electrons return to lower energy state. So excitation is also in the form with the help of light, and output is also in the form of light, and that is the reason we have the word photoluminescence. Now this is a type of luminescence we see the basic application is laser. Diode laser is a part of our syllabus we'll be discussing in the coming videos. Now next is cathodoluminescence. Now you know what exactly you've in first sem you've worked on DSO, that is digital storage oscilloscope. The earlier version of a DSO is CRO, that is cathode ray oscilloscope, or the earlier versions of televisions which had a bulged screen, they also use this phenomenon. It is known as cathodoluminescence, where what happens, the excitation of electrons occurs with the help of a highly energetic beam of electron. So suppose this black colored material is the black colored cuboid shown here indicates your material. So what happens in this case is when a primary electron beam is, just bombarded, it is just focused on this material, this excitation leads to electrons in higher energy state, and when these electrons combine back with the holes, they release output in the form of light. So cathodoluminescence is a process in which highly energetic beam of electrons excites electrons to higher electronic state and then radiates a photon when these electrons return to lower energy state. So basic example is CRT and TV tubes. Now these are the processes not required to be explained in very much depth. They should be explained in brief only. You should just have a brief idea. Now the last one, which is a very important topic related to our syllabus, it is known as electroluminescence, also known as EL. I think you've heard this word. It is the working principle of a device called LED. The process that enables a semiconductor to emit light in response to an electric current or a very strong electric field applied is called electroluminescence. Electrical energy being converted into light. So LED is the best example. It is a process in which direct conversion of electrical energy into visible light takes place without generation of heat. Because it generates very less amount of heat, that is the reason the LED lights have replaced our conventional lighting system. So it is a process commonly used in LEDs when the voltage is applied to a PN junction diode causing a current to flow. That means in forward bias condition, the electrons from N type flow to P type, and what happens? The electrons lose their energy when combining with holes accompanied by emission of light. Let me explain you this process with the help of this diagram. This is considered the forward bias condition of a PN junction diode, where the anode is connected to positive of battery, cathode is connected to negative of battery. So in this case, what happens is this energy is given to electrons. So electrons will move from cathode to anode. They will recombine with the holes. I've just shown a recombination process that electron is recombining with hole. Electron had energy. From where did this energy come? It came from the battery connected. So this energy of electron, now it has recombined with the hole. So where will the energy go? It will be released in the form of a photon. So this is the process of electroluminescence. We will be discussing this process in detail in the topic LED, which I'll be covering in my next video. I hope you've understood the topics. Thank you.